Hi, I'm Alex Newman. I'm a foreign correspondent with The New American, and today I want to talk to you about South Africa and the situation that's happening down there. I actually have a copy of this magazine. We actually produced it in November of 2012 is the cover date on here. It's Genocide and Communism Threaten South Africa. Unfortunately, since we produced this years ago, the situation has continued to decline. It's gotten so bad now that former President of South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, who shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Nelson Mandela, has come out and said that his people, the Afrikaners, may not exist in a number of generations. If this continues, he's accused the president of stirring up racial hatred against the Afrikaner population, the white population of South Africa. It's a really serious threat that they're facing, and unfortunately the U.S. government had a good deal to do with all these problems that are happening there now by insisting on imposing the Soviet-backed political party that ended up taking power there. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what's unfolding there, because the establishment media, of course, which also contributed to this problem, has remained completely silent about it. So first, let's talk about the communism aspect of it. The political party that ended up seizing power, the African National Congress, the ANC, was thoroughly dominated by the communists from years, decades before they actually took power. And this was well known to all the intelligence agencies that the leaders of the ANC were members of the Communist Party. Nelson Mandela, who went to jail for terrorism and communism and blowing things up, blowing up civilians, carrying tons of weapons, and secret membership in the Communist Party, and of course sabotage and treason. He was actually a member of the Communist Party as well. He was on the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party, and this was only revealed after his death, unfortunately. Both the South African Communist Party and the African National Congress put out statements acknowledging that Mandela was not just a communist. He was a member of the Central Committee, the decision-making body of the South African Communist Party, which was, of course, a Soviet front. I think that gives a little bit of context to understand what's been happening. There's so many myths about what happened in South Africa. Nobody needs to defend apartheid to realize that you don't want communist terrorists to take over a country. And there were many, many black people in South Africa from many different tribes, the Zulus and so on, from many different nations, if you will, who did not want the communists to take power. Unfortunately, these people, especially blacks, were targeted for terrorism, for absolute brutality like you can't imagine. Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela's wife, she would brag about how they were going to liberate South Africa with these necklaces and matches. So for those who don't know, necklacing was a tactic pioneered by the ANC, by the African National Congress, where they would fill up a car tire with petrol, with diesel, with gasoline, and they would set it on fire around a person's neck. So, one of the most agonizing ways to die that you could possibly imagine, and thousands of black people were murdered by the ANC terrorists as part of this campaign. And, they were bombing shopping malls. Of course, the Church Street bombing was a really big one, where they blew up lots of innocent civilians. Atrocity after atrocity. They were on the Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress were actually on the U.S. government's list of terrorists until 2008. So, this was all well known to everybody who needed to know, and yet the U.S. government and the United Nations and the Soviet Union insisted on this so-called solution, which involved handing power to these very same people. Something is obviously very wrong with that, and it was pretty easy to forecast what would happen. If you go back and you read the New American of 30 years ago, you'll see that the New American predicted exactly what's happening today.